Only Christ can break this chains, whatever they are in your life. You know what those chains are. And truly the power is found in Jesus Christ. We're streaming live on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974. We're also on Zoom. We're also on YouTube, Transforming Lives radio show. And also you can join us by Facebook. Our WhatsApp line is 433-6917. You can WhatsApp us with your questions on 433-6917. 433-6917. That's a wonderful Sunday afternoon as the music is playing in the background. And so we're just going to ask the producer, play the music low and fade us out. Because truly there is power in the name of Jesus to break every chain. There is power to break every chain. And so we want to welcome those persons tuning in now who have not signed in yet. This is an opportunity to tell others to sign in right now as we prepare to share today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, February, the month of love. For truly there is power to break every chain. So we're just going to ask our producer in the background to make sure he mute the other mics first, please, because since only me one is here. Okay. We know that our co-host, Erin Brown, okay, also Siobhan Hollis. You want to make sure you can put a picture up just so we can confirm who you are, just to make sure that there's nobody else in who is not, supposed to be in, the challenges we have in this day and age with social media. So, Erin, can you just put up a picture first, just so we can confirm you? Okay, our co-host, right? Just to be sure, because we know the challenges we have. So, folks, we just want to welcome you again on this beautiful Sunday afternoon on Global 99.5. I see my co-host, she is not in yet, and a number of persons have not joined us yet. So normally we would use this opportunity to welcome and to invite them. But nevertheless, I just want to say a pleasant good afternoon. We know persons are tuning in on the radio as well as through Cable TV 974. And so we just want to welcome you, those of you all the way from Grand Bahama in the north to Inagua in the south, as well as wherever you are listening to this online, whether it's through the Facebook or the YouTube channel on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, February 28th. And we give God thanks for such a wonderful day. And so, folks, I just want to remind you as we begin today, Tuesday, there's a meeting plan for the CC Sweeting Old Scholars. That's any one of you been to CC Sweeting between the years of 1971 to 2021. 1971 to 2021. We're having a planning meeting for this coming Tuesday, which is the 22nd, 8 p.m. on Zoom. You can WhatsApp me at 433-6917. I can send out the link, because if I call it, I know you won't be able to write it down. Perhaps I may have to get my co-host to type it in the chat. But outside of that, you can WhatsApp me at 433-6917. We're planning a banquet to honor 3 individuals who are a part of the CC Sweeting Old Scholars, and they are our Deputy Commissioner of Police of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Clayton Fernando, the Assistant Commissioner of Police residing in Freeport, Theophilus Cunningham, and the Deputy Commodore of the Defense Force, Dr. Raymond King. And so these 3 men will be honored, and we're hoping to use this as a fundraising to assist the school, and that's the 50th anniversary of the CC Sweeting Cobras. We were known in those days as the Big Doll House. And so I invite you, tell a friend, tell someone, WhatsApp me at 433-6917, and I will send you the link and you can be a part of that meeting. Also, we want to remind you of a special event coming up this coming Friday. It's a teen dating violence dialogue. Love is not abuse. And actually, one of my guests will share more on it live on Facebook founder of 242 Domestic Violence. So you can joining on Facebook. Your guests will be Dave Williams and Denise Major. I'm sure for those of you listening on radio, you're familiar with Dave Williams. I know him myself. And not only that, actually that day is Dave Williams' birthday. And so God spare his life to see that day. He will be another year closer to 60 years old. So we give God thanks. Okay, Denise Major is Director of Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Advocate. And so that's this coming Friday, the 25th of February, 2022, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., 1 hour. And so I just want to invite you to be a part of it. 433-6917. You can WhatsApp me. I can send you the information, the flyer, and I will be sending it around to be a part of it as we talk about teenage dating and the violence that takes place. And we know that seems to be a big issue right now. And as a matter of fact, a number of us, myself and my guest, Erin Brown, as well as my guest, Siobhan Hollis, we attended a seminar just over the weekend. As a matter of fact, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, that the Department of Gender and Family Affairs put on, focusing on marital rape and a number of issues dealing with violence. So folks, I'm just inviting you to join us now, be a part of the conversation. And I just want to introduce my guests. Because my co-host is not here, Jackie Gardner, most of you know, what I'm going to do is allow my guest, Erin Brown, to share a little about herself, her organization, and Siobhan Hollis. And so today we're talking about teenagers with disabilities and how can you and I support such individuals. Okay, my guests are well qualified to talk on it. And as my co-host come in, she's in, I see she's coming in now. Okay, Jackie Gardner, she will ask the questions. And so we will allow Erin Brown to tell us about herself, who she is, maybe share with us for about 15, 20 minutes. And then our guest, Siobhan Hollis, she can do likewise. And then Jackie Gardner, my co-host, will direct with the questions. Erin Brown, welcome to the program, Transforming Lives.
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, nice and loud and clear.
Wonderful, wonderful. It is a pleasure to be here today along with my colleague, Siobhan Hollis, who is wonderful at what she do and how she amplifies voices of persons who are used to being silenced. So thank you, Siobhan, for continuing to do your work. So my name is Erin Brown. I am a short, blonde-haired Black female wearing blue-tinted glasses, a bone cancer osteosarcoma survivor, and self-identify as a limb difference individual, also known as an above-the-knee amputee. My pronouns are she and her, and as a human rights advocate and renowned island girl, I've represented the Bahamas regionally and internationally over the past 17 years through disability inclusion as a nation builder and a change agent for persons with disabilities. I am currently the first Bahamian in maritime history to be selected as a godmother for Royal Caribbean Cruises International Odyssey of the Sea, which made me not only the first Bahamian to have this honor, but also the first para-triathlete and the first Black woman with a disability to receive such an honor. I've served as a disability inclusion consultant, presently the president of the only disability-led consultancy business nationally called Erin Brown Connects Disability Advocacy and Inclusion Management, located in Nassau, providing national ministerial agencies, regional civil societies, and international bodies disability inclusion strategies and inclusive policy reform, disaster and emergency, along with the People with Disabilities Equals Opportunities Act compliance, Paralympic development, inclusive education, and health systems. I'm currently at the University of the Bahamas in the Office of Disabilities and Compliance, where I continue to focus on access, inclusion, and opportunities for students with disabilities. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I just allow our other guests to introduce herself, and then you'll be first, Erin Brown, as you'll talk for about 15 minutes, some information about how we can support and help teens who are affected with disabilities.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you so much, Elder David Williams and Ms. Gardner, and also Erin Brown. It's a pleasure to see you again, Erin Brown. Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful and exciting talk show this afternoon. I'm actually tuning in all the way from Bermuda. My name is Siobhan Hollis, formerly Cash, so I am a Bahamian, definitely. I am an advocate against domestic violence, or we would say gender-based violence, and also an advocate against child sexual abuse. I am also the founder of 242 Domestic Violence Support Network, Inc., which is rather young. We started back in 2020. I use my voice, I use my influence, and I use my platform to help advocates, those who have found their voice, I would say also former victims, survivors, to share their stories, who are comfortable sharing their stories. I have interviewed several survivors, including males and females from Bermuda, from the Bahamas as well. Some you might know, like Cindy Gaudet, Davina Smith, Alicia Roll, Burkett Knowles. I've interviewed them. Also, I have interviewed survivors, I would say, out of the US. So this here is outside of what I do. I am an entrepreneur. I wear many hats. And I also currently am in charge of 2 businesses, At Your Service Business Agency. And also I'm a certified event planner. So outside of that, this calling has, I should say, come upon me during the pandemic, actually. Nothing to do, just sitting around. I was like, what can I do that would be impactful? So with further ado, it came upon me, and I network. I reached out to a local survivor of domestic violence in Bermuda, and she and I had started talking, and we started to host forums on domestic violence. That was our main topic. As we know, since the pandemic, there has been a global increase in domestic violence. And, it was really just like I would say in the Bahamas and globally, it had a vast increase in Bermuda. So just through us having the live feed, people could tune in, people could hear, people could listen, and also they could get support through whatever means necessary. So this platform, or I should say the virtual platform for this tenure, has been my voice. It is a passion of mine to support survivors, to help victims, to kind of raise awareness, to keep awareness out there in every which way necessary. Outside of that, I have been putting pen to paper, and I've written a few articles on child sexual abuse and domestic violence, and how we in the Bahamas can do more, and we all can get involved in some capacity and support survivors, and obviously to help victims to find their voices. So again, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, and I am happy to contribute to this wonderful topic. Thank you.
Okay, just want to say thanks. So Erin Brown, can you lead the way and telling us about the challenges that these young people face with disabilities, how we can support them? You and your co-hosts, Siobhan and Jackie, will ask the question. So if you don't hear me, I'll be in the background taking care of some other things, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, Jackie. Nice to see you.
Great to have you here.
And so what what I enjoy about these type of dialogues and conversations, not only that we are utilizing social media, which is an excellent platform for awareness and exposure for youth and teens with disabilities, not only around the world, but within the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It allows a conversation to happen in real time where persons can maybe garner some tools or ask questions or even change their mindset. And so we know that people with disabilities, they are varying, diverse people, and their experience is very, very varying depending on the type of disability that they live with. Now, you have persons who are born with a disability. You also have persons who acquired a disability. For me in particular, I acquired a disability over 17 years ago. So my lived experiences and the way that I was able to live as a non-disabled person first in my teens, into my adolescence, and then I acquired a disability, has a different feel from a person who was born with a disability. And therefore their experiences is coming and growing and being nurtured in an environment that is over and repeatedly told to them that it's not for them. The various barriers and the challenges that not only their family members, their guardians, their educators, persons within their communities would have recognized are very clear barriers, impacts the way that a child, an infant, a toddler, a teen will view life and will experience life. And so when you now recognize that you're living with a disability as a teenager, a lot of your fundamental years will dictate or will be your foundation, what you are able to build and expand on in your teenage years. And so with the census of 2009, we recognize that over 10,000, I think it's 138 persons live with a disability within the Bahamas. And in those statistics, we also recognize that education became a barrier for a lot of these persons, as between the ages of 5 years old and older, only 7.3% had no form of education. 47.4% only had secondary level education, and 7.6% only had college education, compared to their non-disabled counterparts whose numbers were vast, lower than those, because the form of education has always been an absolute barrier for youth with disabilities, being able to have access to it and also being able to engage inclusively. We've had special education curriculums, establishment facilities which are needed, also created to provide that support, but now we have absolutely intentionally recognize that during this time, the separate and apart model has not done justice for our teens with disabilities, for our nation as a whole. Because what happens is now, when it is time to engage as a community, when it is time to increase access for social development, leadership development, inclusive healthcare, when it's time to provide support for adaptive equipment, rehabilitation, we are unaware of who exists. Our data collection during those times, because it's been so separate and apart, even the lived experiences of not being able to engage within a school setting at a young age from grade school, engage with diverse people that live in your community, most who have been delegated to being hidden. And so now all of a sudden this person is popping up in their experiences. Where did you come from? We didn't even know this exists. Or we may then acquire a disability as a teenager and we're saying life is over because our lived experiences as a non-disabled person did not see anyone, any teenager, any person, any adult living a full life with a disability. We've experienced the no, put them over there. Oh, well, you know, cousin so-and-so can't do that, or no, we don't take them here and there. And it's not only because of the barriers, but it's also because our cultural experiences and our unconscious biases have now framed this box for teens with disabilities to now don't have the ability to grow, to expand. I remember doing a conference with primary schools, and I asked the question, and thankfully this was a diverse group. They had special education schools, they had integrated primary schools, which do exist in the government system, where they have non-disabled and disabled students in one school. And I asked, what would you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? And hands shot up. But I recognize that the grouping that came from special education are those who I would have visibly been able to see that they live with a disability, because we do have invisible disabilities, did not raise their hand. And so I decided I'm going to ask a male and a female. And when I asked that question, what do they want to be? The response was jaw-dropping. The male, who was not very ready to talk, he was more shy, he just shook his head and was like, no, I'm okay. The female, though, stated she was told there is nothing for her to be.
Wow.
There is nothing there for her. She lives with a disability. What is she supposed to reach to? And that hurt my heart to the core, because this is the reality. As much as it may have not completely shocked me, it took me back, because living as a non-disabled child, I was in everything. I did everything, got roused for everything. I was the tomboy who tried it all. Nothing stopped me. Yet I thought about it. If I was born with a disability, would that have been my same experience? And the reality is, it's not. It's not. And we have to not only identify the gaps and the barriers that we as a society have created. An ableistic society is not just discrimination or prejudice against people with disabilities. It's a discrimination and prejudice for what we do not consider the norm. And so we must now, if we truly want to be sustainable, if we truly want to understand how this great nation of the Bahamas and the world, because this is a global conversation. I don't want to speak to you today, you thinking that this is just the Bahamas. There's over 1 billion people worldwide who live with a disability. And I think about 7.3 million in the Caribbean alone that lives with a disability. And so we need to understand that our teens, our youths, our primary school, our adolescents, our students with disabilities are our future. I tend to call them our secret weapon, because we cannot continue to hide them. We cannot continue to not provide them with access to scholarships, access to school and education, access to integration into society. Disability is an intersexual experience. What does that mean? It means, intersex means when you're able to go through and pass through each other, overlap, engage. Disability is a part of a person's identity. Just as we speak to race, gender, just as we speak to sexual orientation, religion, socioeconomics, disability is the part that we have missed out. And our teens with disabilities in the Bahamas are feeling the wrath of it, because now we go into what Bahamians like call, we beg it. We want a donation. We need investments. And the teens and the youth are crying out for it. And during this month, especially the more conversation that we're having about gender-based violence, I want you to also know that teens with disabilities, women and girls with disabilities, boys and men with disabilities experience a higher risk and rate of gender-based violence, sexual abuse, physical violence, yet we still have not addressed any of it. So how can you support? How can you support a teen with a disability? Let's start with the fact that access is a human right, and they are humans first. Not only are they humans first, they are the innovators, the creators. They are the ones that have lived lives full of barriers, but yet some of them are so intentional, so motivated that they will show up authentically as they are to ask you, where can I go? What can I do? It is time for you now to intentionally take stock. And it's not an easy thing to do. Take stock of the things that you have been doing, because this is not about changing the model of the wheel. It's not about throwing away the baby in the bathwater. It's about intentionally looking at the spaces that you currently impact, that currently exist, and the procedures that you have. Are they increasing access? Did you include facilities that wheelchair users? Did you include sign language interpreters for those who may have sign language as a first language? The only language that they know is sign language. Have you done these things in your communication, in your programming? Have you included in your data collection, in your reporting, that you may have 5 girls and 6 boys? How many out of those were boys and girls with disabilities? As simple as these things sound, they are absolute power moves for people with disabilities, for teens with disabilities. How are you empowering, amplifying their voice? And when I say that, I don't mean by just saying to them, okay, come here, we can throw you in here and do this. Have the conversation, ask them, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Because I sit here today as a professional with a disability, who was not born with a disability, but live now for the rest of my life as a mother with a disability, a Black woman with a disability, an athlete with a disability, who is prepared to live my full life. Why? Because I found spaces and persons who believed that that was not only possible, but it is happening all around us. And we now need to engage these teens. Have the honest conversation. When you don't know, you ask. When you don't know, you ask. And saying the word disability and disabled, it is not a bad word. So language is also important. And I'm sorry if I went over my 15 minutes.
No, that's fine. You're a powerhouse. I was listening so intently, I even forgot it was an interview. It's like, it's a lot of information, and I think information that needs to be shared. But I want to just roll things back a little bit and talk about mindset and what is happening. Let's start, let's start in our home. These individuals, whether they're teenagers, adults, what type of, from where you sit and from your exposure in dealing with persons who are disabled, do you think we're doing sufficiently in our home? We're going to go to our community, but let's start because, that foundation is in our home. Do you think there is sufficient conversation? So I'm going to ask almost like a twofold question, whether from where you sit, most of the disabled person in the Bahamas, and if you want, you can make your comment extensive to a broader community. Do they see themselves as victims or survivors? So it's going to be, what can they do to turn that around if they see themselves as victims? And lastly, since the home is the building and the building block and the starting place, what can parents, so I hope that's not too many questions, what parents can do to change that around? I see that you have all this on together. I'm coming. Go ahead.
Jackie, I just want to make sure to remind you, don't forget the other guest there too to address the question.
I have her, definitely.
Okay then. All right, go ahead.
I have Miss Hollis, right? I have one. Yes, she's there.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So what is important to recognize from a home standpoint, we're also coming from cultural traditions and biases that we live culturally. So we were brought into a lot of spaces, a lot of things that we as children just don't understand, and we just following suit, right? So which also mean that our parents are doing the same thing. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And from the home perspective, we have become so used to putting things under the rug, whether it is disability, whether it is other aspects in family dynamics. We have successfully covered a lot of things up. So when something happens, like having a disability, we don't view it as something that, oh my gosh, this is going to be a great time. We are going to do many things. They don't view it that way. It has a negative connotation, and this is why the narrative, the language has to change, not only from a personal space, but also from a home space. When I acquired a disability, I literally lost friends and family because they only saw me as that. Oh, you're driving? Why are you driving? Why are you going to the grocery store? Why are you? And I'm going, well, what did you think I was supposed to do? I am still a human being with dreams and aspects. Why do you think that everything was supposed to just fall off, right? But that is the reality. We see things that way, and it's because our society has successfully developed a space that is only for the majority, which is non-disabled persons. And so from a home aspect, for me, I recognize in my age now that I was just always that child who was ready to tell you, you ain't gonna tell me what I can do and what I not can do, right? So I innately had some skills that my cancer journey pulled out of me for survival, to adapt, to make sure that I can thrive. I might have struggled first. I had to go through striving, and I had to get to push towards thriving. But those were birthed in that process. So I had to fight with my dad on a lot of things. And I thought my dad was the most progressive way of thinking. But then the parent protection kicks in. I want to protect my child. I want to make sure that they ain't going through all of this, and I want to do more for them because it wasn't done for me. And this is why we have to be very intentional that even in that love, that parent love, you can be destroying and dismantling a person's zeal and desire to thrive. And so each situation is different, but I honestly would say, understand that if something was to happen to you today as a parent, will your child make it? That should be your drive. To create spaces of independence where it's necessary, and an independent support system that they can find, a network, a space, a person that can now guide them through. Because we all know one thing is certain: death. And so that is what I would encourage persons to, and when you're talking about the victim and the survivor journey, oh, Jackie, that's a whole nother conversation. But to do it very short, what I would say is a lot of us are stuck on struggle.
Yes.
A lot of us have found that struggle is the way of life. And therefore we're comfortable with it for whatever reason.
Stop.
It is time, and that's where the mindset comes in. Nobody can change your mindset for you. If your desire is to not be as active, not be as vocal, to be more of a person that's desires are more behind the scenes, or maybe no desires at all, there's nothing wrong with that, because that is absolutely your choice and your right. The issue that comes into play is when you now decide to do that and the effects are not positive ones, it's time to change your plan. Right. All right. It's time to change your plan, and you have to seek out people who are going to help you change your plan versus who are going to keep you in that space. But at the end of the day, the choice is solely yours.
Oh, well said. Well said. So I want to speak to those parents. We have parents in the room. We spoke a little bit about fixed mindset and growth mindset. You might hear a little bit about that. And I think for parents, many of our parents, and maybe it's just passed, like you said, passed through our history line, where we're fixed. We know disability. You know, you had the days when it was in the background. You know, you came to the house, you didn't even see the disabled child. That child was kept in the room, not even visible. And you'd be like, well, where is Sam, or where is she's somewhere in the room? But I think what you are saying now is the time to bring that child to the forefront, and not just having a conversation with the child, because I think it starts there. I think parents need to understand that. I was watching this particular program, and the lady had a disability and she wanted to be an actress. So I'm just bringing this up because it fits so well
with
the conversation. Yes, she wanted to be an actress. And she said, automatically, what came to the forefront of the mouth of her parents was the fact that you cannot do that. Like, why would you have such a dream? You understand? Why would you even have such a dream? Why would you put yourself through that situation? Mm-hmm. And she said that she got into acting, and all along the way, they were expecting her to fail. Eventually she did, but she was like, I was living a self-fulfilling prophecy. What I needed was someone to say I could succeed. So as we have this discussion,
everything is possible.
There you go. Everything is possible. So setting that foundation for your child from the very beginning, because as parents, you are responsible for framing the thought, the mindset of that child. You are the number one person. Now, there's a point where that child takes over for himself or herself as they grow and mature, but that's the number one responsibility. And fostering a growth mentality, like, hey, no, you might not be able to do this now, but when you apply effort, let's set some goals, like you said, let's set some goals, whatever it is, let's set some goals and let's celebrate growth along the way. So glad to hear your contribution. So we're going to navigate between the two discussion, and feel free. So I'm going to talk a little bit about domestic violence and domestic violence in our community. So Ms. Hollis, from what you have seen, we've had a pandemic and lots of persons have been shut up on the inside. Do you think the increased, that we always had a problem with domestic violence, or the pandemic? Do you think that the pandemic just brought it to the spotlight, or was it always a challenge within the Bahamas and around the world with domestic violence? Because we're hearing so much now with the pandemic. I want to know, was it always a big challenge? Let's start there.
Thank you. A very good and timely question. I feel it was both. I feel that it was always there, smothered. You know, a lot of people would not speak of it. However, the pandemic has brought it to the forefront because it has vastly increased globally. I'm not sure of the statistics in the Bahamas. As I say, I am in Bermuda, but I held a platform, I held a panelist group where I had a detective, a domestic violence liaison officer with the Bermuda police. And she mentioned that daily they were getting calls to rescue victims of domestic violence. Like literally it was going up by the day, by the minute, by the hour, you know, as the pandemic took on, we all were locked down. So could you imagine a woman or maybe a man, you know, both goes through domestic violence, and especially the disabled person who can't even kind of mobilize as quickly as probably running out, so to speak. So it has impacted homes drastically. We've even had, you know, a death due to domestic violence. So like they say, the perfect crime occurred. You know, you're locked down, 911, getting around to each other, but it went out of control. I know from speaking and hearing the police officer who was on my platform, she said daily she was getting calls. It was like literally just skyrocketing. I guess, locked up in the house. The communication is not there. Just anything that takes, him or her off, and no kind of release of being able to go to work. At least you have your colleagues, or you can have that time apart. So it's I would say it has escalated it or magnified the problem, and it has gotten out of control globally. Like, I mean, there were even persons who lost their lives as a result of domestic violence during the lockdown. And the unfortunate thing was that most government, I mean, the whole world was thrown kind of, a hard ball or a curveball where, they were locking people down. They were giving these curfews, these lockdowns without even considering persons who may be at risk, children who might be at risk, not only domestic violence, incest, molestation, sexual abuse. So it was a whole lot of stuff that was going on. And if I can say, the pandemic has brought out a very vital aspect of it. The reason why I say that is because now people are speaking up about it. It's like the searchlight has gone into the dark crevices, and people are freely talking about it. So it's the positive side of that, because now, like I said, there's so much platforms, so much marches, even back home in the Bahamas, even where I'm at globally. Women right now are finding their voices. You have women who are silent and not speaking up, even if they're doing it from a virtual standpoint. And it's getting into the ears of the decision makers and the right people to say, look here, we need help. We really need your help. So I, work to do where I'm staying right now, and even back in the Bahamas, there's much more we all need to do. We all need to get involved. We all need to use our voices. We all need to reach out to others, because it's just so hard.
Yes. And
Yes, I think
I totally agree with you. One of the things we recognize, and I pulled up the statistics for you for the Bahamas, one thing we recognize, especially for our people with disabilities during this time, the reporting mechanisms were inadequate. As simple as it is for a non-disabled person to dial 911, that is not the case for a person with a disability, or even going into a station, or even emergency protocols and trained personnel coming in to assist them. They're not specifically trained for disability inclusion. So that also was a deterrent. But if I can quickly, they did report, the IDB did a survey where they recognized that 11.3% of women indicated an increase in domestic violence within their household. They also recognized that 13.9% were in the higher income increase, and 10.1% in middle income, and 10.3% in lower income households. So in the Bahamas, we absolutely had an increase with domestic violence.
But isn't that interesting? For the statistics you quoted, it seemed like the increase in the high income, like the person's earning, that's some interesting, because we tend to think it's all related to money. But seemingly even the persons in that high income category, they had the higher increase of incidences.
Yeah,
based on this.
Because I think it's still related to money. It's privilege. Well, a lot of times when you get in those spaces, is you should, it's you feeling like, okay, I am living in this space now. There's certain things I'm expected to do. The expectation is much greater the higher the income is, versus a lower income family. Their dynamics would be different, with a different set of expectations.
Great explanation. Go right ahead.
Yes, sorry. If I can jump on that, very good explanation, Erin. If I can jump on that, from my interviews and speaking, it doesn't matter. Domestic violence occur behind the gates, as well as it occur, over the hill. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, your age, your ethnicity, your race, your gender identity, or whatever. It happens to just about, I should say straight across the board line. The one thing that we sometimes overlook is that persons who may be living, let's go to Bahamas, behind Lightfoot Key Gate or the gated community or the affluent areas or affluent women, that they may not report it. They may not have to move out because, okay, they probably living in a 6-7 bedroom house. They could go in another room, whereas perhaps someone in a, less affluent condition or position, can stay in that 1 bedroom, and it's more, like I said, magnified on the person. But no, it doesn't matter when it comes to domestic violence. It really doesn't matter. It's just that most times we tend to hear from victims of persons who probably live in the rural areas or who probably, in those more poorer communities. But it doesn't have a face. If I can say something, it doesn't have a face. And not only that, right, domestic violence, it's more than physical abuse. It's emotional.
That was next question.
It's mental. It's verbal.
Yes.
It's a whole wide spectrum, and we have to be educated about it. Even back home in the Bahamas, we have to, because unless a woman comes to work with a black eye, maybe a bust lip, maybe, scratches, scrapers, bruise marks, we don't know. She could be emotionally at her wit's end. She could be mentally fatigued. She could be exhausted as well. So we need to learn the signs. We need to dive much deeper into the other aspects of abuse, financially in some ways. Some people call it economic abuse. It's just so much. It's such a wide topic. And I think, to be fair to the average or the general populace, they just don't know. That's why it's persons like us, like Erin, myself, who have platforms, who are advocates, who are out there speaking. We have to have more awareness or programs where we could break it down so people could understand. Also, we have to, corporate, we have to put things in place, in our corporate setting, on the job, what to look for. Sometimes you see your colleagues coming in a little upset. We don't know what upset that person. Maybe they're just coming from being abused. Maybe the man, just say something, or the woman might have said something to the gentleman, and they're just coming in to work with pressure on them, and then to come to work and you have your added pressure. So it's a lot of dialogue that needs to be had. It's a lot of education and awareness that really needs to be had. So I think that's what we're missing, is that we really need to discuss it. We really need to break it down, and we really need people to understand what to look for. And like I say, I know in Bahamas we say, well, it's none of your business. We need to make it our business. That's something that we need to do. Just how we say we like gossip and poke in people's business, we need to make it our business when we see our colleagues coming to work. Just say, good morning, how are you today? Is all everything okay? Just by saying that. And I'm speaking from a situation really quickly. When I was a manager of a job, I would have an employee who always came to work sort of late. When she came in, I would notice little marks, little bruises. And, you can't just openly ask a person, are you being abused? But eventually, I had to build up that sort of relationship where she felt comfortable, and she told me what was going on at her home. And I was able to, get her help. Now we have something in Bermuda called Employee Assistance Program. I don't know if the Bahamas have it. I've been outside so long of the Bahamas, living outside of it, and that is really helpful, because that's a sector, like a psychological sector of the corporate world, where they sponsor that for all employees, whether you're a police officer, whether you're an ordinary employee, they have that there. So if you're just going through, your job is overwhelming, maybe some personal matters you're dealing with, you can go and see them free, probably for an hour a day or whenever, so that is important as well. If we don't have it, I suggest we try to commission our government and try to talk about that, because that really helps. It really helps when you could talk to someone and just let it out, So that's important as well.
Thank you so very much. A word to the wise, a very excellent suggestion. I want to make sure I engage our guests. So at this time, I know we're nearing the end. This show is always so short. I have so many questions, but we definitely want to get to our audience. So if you're on Facebook and want to ask a question, we have Dave out there, and also in the room, we can unmute the mic. So please let me know whether you have a question before. Okay, yes. So I will continue, but if you do have a question, please raise your hands. Anyone in the chat? Let's see what's going on in the chat. Good evening, good evening. We have wow feedback on something being shared. Okay, so yeah, we have that wow factor. We're listening. Okay, so if you're in the room, in Zoom, on Zoom, sorry, and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and we will give you an opportunity before the show ends for you to ask the question. So let's address this. I don't know if it happens in Bermuda, but I know it was a mindset here, and maybe Erin can tell me from where she sits whether she's seen an improvement in this mindset. If he loves me, a man, if he loves me, he beats me. That's one of the ways that he shows that he loves me. If he's not beating me, that means that he does not love me enough. Do you see from where you sit, Ms. Hollis, we could start with you, from where you sit, do you still see this mindset being maintained, or you see a decrease in terms of this kind of mindset? And then I'll turn it over to you, Erin, from where you sit in the Bahamas.
Sure. Well, Bermuda, I can't speak for every, male counterpart in Bermuda. Bermuda men sort of, are different. Not saying that, I don't love my Bahamian brothers, but the mentality over here is slightly different. Yes, it is something that I could say back home in the Bahamas where, I've known women who feel that, okay, if he know my whereabouts, he loved me. If he called me every 2 minutes, he loves me, he just checking on me and whatnot. It goes back to educating ourselves, even as females, educating ourselves to say that is not okay. I myself, I am a married woman. When I choose to go out, or let's say have our girls' time, men have their boys' night or men time, as a woman, I choose to let my spouse know that, honey, I'll be here. I should be home around this time. If you don't see me, and these are, who I'll be with, etc. It's out of respect. It's nothing to do with, you're entitled to call me when I'm out with my girls every 2 minutes or whatnot. It's just setting boundaries, but putting respect in there as well. So I wouldn't say over here they have that mentality that I know of. I could only speak for one man who I'm married to, but no, I don't quite see that here. Jealousy come in all color, every race, etc. But it's all about drafting up boundaries and having a level of respect for each other. It goes both ways, the male and the female. That's how I would put it.
Yes, and what I love about this conversation while you were talking, Siobhan, was when you spoke about persons just don't know. And a lot of the conversation with disability is the same. There are invisible disabilities as well as visible disabilities that you can see. And some people just don't know. And what you're doing and what you're suggesting is the same thing. We want to ask, we want to engage, we want to give a community a sense of belonging that all human beings inside this space is accounted for, is cared for, and is looked out for. And so when it comes to the mindset, in my opinion, I think Caribbean regions or regionally, we have different cultures that are very, very similar. And it may not be wholly that if he doesn't hit me, he doesn't love me, but it goes back to the different levels of the cycle that we've seen. A lot of us have grown up in spaces where our uncles beat all of his girlfriends and they were happy together. They were sad one moment, then they were happy. And then you have parents, and then you get into your own relationship because your mindset or your expectation is, maybe this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the cycle continues until it doesn't. Whether you may find in your experience that someone has passed because of abuse and that snaps you out of it and says, oh, no, I don't want to be that. Or you find that you've seen success. You've seen persons successful in toxic relationships. And as toxic as they may have been, there's a level of, I would like to have that type of love, because familiarity is one of our comfort spaces. We gravitate to that. We have to be intentional in order to not be pulled into that. And so the mindset within itself is one that it's really your will. It's really your will. And then after you've dealt with the will, then it's the reality of your environment. Like you say, coming to work and persons just overlooking it, or persons knowing that you are, but they're not saying anything because they're minding their business. But it impacts a nation when you mind your business, because that bloodshed, that violence, that spreads and that seeps into spaces that you're not even aware until it's to your doorstep.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is well said. Absolutely, to our doorsteps. So in terms, going a little bit back to disability, do you think with respect to relationships that the disabled they experience more abuse or more violation in relationships? And if they do, what you think are some of the key reasons why?
Yes, it is. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
Sharon.
I just wanted to interject 1 second, Erin. I wanted to dwell in a little more, or just have a few minutes to speak of the invisible disability that you mentioned. And I think a lot of times it's just like domestic violence. Most people would look at someone with a limb, off, or someone that an amputee, etc., and they just look at that. Okay, that's disability. What about the invisible disability? Persons that suffer from anxiety, I do at times. Person that may have other disorder, persons with ADHD, autism. I myself is an aunt to an autistic young man, I myself has a brother who has acquired disability. But going back to the invisible disability is something you can't readily see from the eye, but it's there. So I know sometimes people, even mentally, people say, oh, this person having a mental breakdown and whatnot. So all of that intertwines with as well abuse. Over and repeatedly, you're hearing someone speak down to you, speak harsh to you, verbally abusing you, saying hurtful things to you. That breaks down, like we say, on your psyche. That does something to someone. So a lot of times we may not see someone, just out there. Like you say, it goes back to domestic violence, goes back to what is disability, but there's things that we cannot see with the naked eyes. And, like you say, disabled persons get abused. Their thing is they are even more at risk than we are. Because, many times, I would say most times they are at risk even more than us. I would say, when I say us, meaning, us who may not forget, those that are suffering from invisible disabilities as well. Someone who's just broken at the edge of being suicidal, depressed, stuff like that. So.
Yes, and sure. And once again, language. No one is suffering from a disability ever. You're living with a disability. And what you spoke to is women and girls with disabilities face up to 10 times more violence than women and girls without disabilities, right? And we also know that, especially those ones that you have spoken to, the intellectual disability, the neurodiverse disabilities, those disabilities tend to have a higher rate in not reporting, because when they show up to say that, they have been raped, they have been abused, people look at them and they want to know, well, how you know? Or how we supposed to know that what you're saying is what actually said? And that's actually across the board for women and girls reporting, period, and boys and men reporting any type of abuse. There's always this stigma, this backlash that they experience of either humor that, what, you let that happen? Or why should we believe that that actually happened? And so in intimate relationships, especially for domestic violence, gender-based violence, we find that the perpetrator is usually an intimate partner. There's higher rates for intimate partners or familiar partners than it is for an absolute stranger. And why is that? It goes back to women and girls with disabilities or people with disabilities who are hidden, who are not given access to all of the livelihoods and the resources and the spaces available. So their experience is not only hidden, but the things that happen to them are also encompassed in that, encapsulated. They're not able to share what happened because this person feeds me. This person's make sure I have a shelter over my head. Who am I to then be ungrateful? Because yes, it is a mindset as well for people with disabilities. We think that it's a favor if somebody is doing your absolute human right, the right that you have as a human being. When they're doing that, we get excited because we're like, oh, they're so nice. In actuality, they may absolutely be a nice person. But please know that you have a right for all of the constitutes of a human being, living with a disability, having a different sexual orientation, speaking a different language, or even being a migrant in someone's country.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we had one question in the room. I saw a hand raised. I don't know if that person, go right ahead with your question. I saw one person had their hand raised. Okay. So let's, as we were winding down, I know it's 5:03. We started. Okay, Miss White, go right ahead with your question.
I just want to say to those of you tuning in live on Global 99.5, that's my signal that we have to sign off the air, as well as Cable TV 974. And so folks, you've been listening to the program Transforming Lives on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974, Facebook, Zoom, and YouTube, along with my co-host Jackie Gardner, my guests Siobhan Hollis and Erin Brown. And so we end the program the way we always end the program, reminding you there's absolutely nothing more important than having a relationship with Jesus Christ. We always want to get that out there and to recognize that we're not talking about your denomination, nor are we talking about my denomination. We're not talking about your church, nor are we talking about my church. We're talking about having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which gives us guarantee of salvation now, today. Folks, you've been listening to Transforming Lives, Global 99.5. Continue to join us on Facebook, Zoom, and YouTube. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Hi.
So we can continue on Zoom. We just signed off the radio on Cable TV 974.
Okay, I just have one last question. So we've been talking about education. So coming right back to the importance of education. So we have many folks listening to this program and wanting to be transformed by the information provided by this program. And we have two wonderful guests. They've done a wonderful job in explaining this particular topic. So I want to leave from the show, and my audience might be asking, what can I do? What can I do leaving from the show right here and right now to ensure that I am advancing the conversation? I am playing my part and ensuring that I am getting the message out. What would you say to my guest as we end this conversation? What are some of the things, and I want both of you to answer, what are some of the things that you would like them to leave this show? Understanding and appreciating that once they do these things, they are part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem. Either one of you can start.
Sure. If I can, I would say get involved. When I say get involved, not to put yourself in people's personal business, but ask the question, are you okay? Good morning, are you okay today? Simple as that. On your job, how's your day going? Those are little subtle signals to a person where you can, as a person might just be waiting for someone to ask them if you're okay. I know in Bahamas we have good mannerism and we say good morning, everyone. Most of us do. But just simply ask, are you okay today? How's your day going? Just little simple words like that means a lot to that person who may be going through an abusive relationship, or maybe going through something where they just simply want to know that someone cares. I've seen, just to regress a bit, I've seen that suicide has even increased in the Bahamas, even more so than ever. So, it's just about asking that person, asking that individual, are you okay? How is your day going? And just creating, going back to the way we used to be, more loving, being our brothers and sisters keepers. Another thing would be use your voice. When we have marches, when those NGOs, advocates, and activists have marches, if you're not doing anything, then at least attend. When they have Zoom meetings, when they have different forums, attend. All of that is showing your support in some way, some form, even if it's something that they're hosting way. So all of this shows people that we are one Bahamas, because today for this person, tomorrow could be for you or myself or our family. None of us are exempt from abuse. None of us are exempt from disability, acquiring a disability. So I just wanted to say, I myself, if you're looking for an online way to encourage, to support, and awareness, my program, if you don't mind, my Facebook page is 242 Domestic Violence to just joined us. I host a lot of, like I said, forums with survivors and information. There's a lot in the work that I'm doing that I'm hoping to bring home to network and assist the NGOs that.
Pleasure having you.
Yes. And Siobhan, I remember going to one of the trainings, and what I can say the pandemic has allowed us to do is connect, even in the spaces that we are in. And that is very important during this time, because there are so many secluded spaces. And if you have a handheld device, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a laptop, you can watch replays, you can contact someone. And so it is important for us to continue to hold this space. So thank you. Even all the way in Bermuda, we thank you for continuing to show up and holding these spaces virtually, in person, and regionally to engage us. And for me, the question is very surreal when it comes to education, when it comes to the whole conversation of gender-based violence, violence, abuse. If we honestly think about it, women and girls from birth with disabilities, they face discrimination. The literacy rates are lower. They do not have access to many aspects when it comes to educational leadership opportunities. If we then move on to, as they grow into, and they also have to experience the increased risk of violence, sexual violence, physical abuse, because they are living with a disability, right? And so if we now get into the spaces where we're now adolescents with disabilities, and the numbers don't go down. they go up, because then you then experience no access to sexual reproductive management, no tools, no resources. You can't even have the conversation about protecting yourselves or what it means to have a healthy body and well-being. If you are violated, you're not able to, you don't even know where to go to report, who to go to have this space. Yet we continue to watch our counterparts, our non-disabled women and girls, men and boys receive these things. So how in our fullness, in our holistic thinking as a nation, as a world, how do we honestly feel about that? It boils down to education, awareness, to implementation. We use a lot of these words, diversity, but we leave out the conversation about disability. We hear about sustainability, innovation, creativity, yet we do not embrace that disability is enrooted in those terms. Our nation builders, our innovators, they've lived with disabilities. It was never separate and apart. And so this is the time. This is the time now. And I thank you for allowing us to come to this show, to have these type of conversations, because if we don't intentionally do it, when you become a person living with a disability, which will happen, if it's not through birth, you may acquire it through an accident, an incident, or medical condition. If you do not experience it then, you will experience it in age. 10 will allow you to experience that. And so do not wait until that is the point. You have an opportunity right now. You have an opportunity right now to continue this conversation with the tools that you've garnered today. And the most basic tool that both Siobhan and I am speaking to is access, inclusion, opportunities for all human beings on this wonderful planet we call Earth.
Wow. Well, thank you so much to our two brilliant guests. They've represented their perspective well. And I now want to turn the show over to the one and only Mr. David Williams. Thank you so much for being wonderful guests.
Thank you, Jackie. I just want to ask Mrs. Hollis, mention the upcoming program this coming Friday again, please.
Sure, I totally forgot. Thank you for reminding me. So this upcoming Friday, we're gonna have a very exciting live feed on my page. So please sign up. It's at 242 Domestic Violence Support Network, Inc. My very special guest will be Elder David Williams and Denise Major. We're gonna talk about, it's gonna be uncensored. What do we say? We slapping up. But we're gonna talk about and address a very pertinent topic. February is Teen Dating Violence Month. It's recognized globally, so we're gonna be talking to the teens. So if you have a teen, if you know a teen, you don't even have to be a teen. Just come on over to our page. We're gonna be streaming live, and we're gonna have a whole holistic 1 hour show concerning teen dating violence, what to look up from the male aspect as well as the female aspect. I would entreat you to have them to tune in. Just tune in. So it's this Friday time, your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, excellent. Keith, Keith, can you unmute your mic? There's another event Friday coming that I also have to attend, 4 p.m. As you know, I'm full in support of the men, and we talk about the violence with men. Keith, can you unmute your mic and tell them about this event coming up Friday? Okay, Keith, can you unmute? Okay, if he can't unmute, what we're having 4 p.m. Friday is, we're going into the Ida Street community to they call it a grill and chill with a young man. As you know, Ida Street was recently in the news with an incident that happened with a young lady. She was killed just in front of the church. And the International Men Save Bahamas Committee and a number of men, along with the Urban Renewal Police and a number of other civic organizations, Prison Fellowship Bahamas, we visited that community. We visited that community and we spent some time with those young men, talking, sharing information about how to prevent violence, about anger management, conflict resolution. And so we made a commitment to go back into that community to spend some time with these young men in the community. And that's this coming Friday, 4 p.m. I also want to say to you, Elder David Williams' birthday is Friday. So if the Christ that he serves spares his life, I will be able to say, wow, for his honor and glory. And who knows, that's my birthday. Maybe we have some gifts to give away. You just never know. So folks, also I want to remind you the CC Sweeting class, 1971 to 2021, 50th year anniversary. We're having a gala ball in honor of the Deputy Commissioner, Clayton Fernanda, the Assistant Commissioner, Theophilus Cunningham, as well as the Commodore of the Defense Force, Dr. Raymond King. So the question is asked, can any good thing come out of CC Sweeting? And I say yes. They used to call us the Big Dollhouse. So folks, I just want to thank you for this program today on Global 99.5, Cable TV 974. We had a wonderful conversation with my guest, Siobhan Hollis, Erin Brown, as we continue to talk, to share. And I want to let you know that before 1917, before the year 2017, I did not know much about domestic violence. I would have been one of those men who would have responded, oh, that's a women thing. That's them hating women thing. Oh, that's for those soft men. But as a result of education, I am now more informed. And that's why I became a part of the movement. I got the training in Nassau. And then I was sent to Trinidad for CARICOM. Then I went to Jamaica with the IDB, and well as the local training. So I just want to say, the information is going out there. Believe me, you're doing something in terms of changing the mindset. And as a result of it, my partner and I, Ken Jobo, we were able to take this program in the Department of Corrections in 2020, where we spoke to 25 men who were charged with sex crimes against women and children, as well as the sexual violence. And it was an awesome experience to be able to share with these men and to dialogue. And also my partner, Ken Jobo from Rite of Passage, we also shared at the Penn Pratt, that's the Boys and Girls School. So I want to encourage you to continue to share your information, get it out there. We're changing the mindset, in particularly of our men. And I know that more men will be a part of it as we not only stop the violence against our women and girls, but we continue to help with the stopping violence against our young men. Dave Williams, Transforming Lives, Global 99.5, my co-host Jackie Gardner, Cable TV 974, Facebook, Zoom. Thank you, Erin Brown. Thank you, Siobhan Hollis. And folks, yes, I end this program again, and I always say this. We talk about there's nothing more important. Everything that was said, it is having your relationship with Christ. I can't judge you. You can't judge me. If you say you have your relationship with Christ, amen. And if I say I have mine, amen. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that will matter is having eternal life now. We all want to die in Christ, and the only way we can die in Christ is to live in him now. 5 minutes is not promised to us. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to allow the room to be open now that you can be able to just do some greetings, or if you decide you just want to ask some questions.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you too.
When you bring and address boys and men as well who experience abuse. You know, a lot of times our counterparts in that regard feel like, why nobody's addressing it? and it's not anything personal versus the stats. The stats is so staggering, but we do understand as well, even though the stats state that way, that the perpetrators or the boys and the boys and men that experience gender-based violence, sexual abuse, physical abuse are continuing a cycle as well. And so we need to also provide them with support, guidance, give them a space to not only express, but to learn, to garner some more tools. So when they get to those spaces, whether it's through anger, frustration, or just not knowing, just thinking that if I don't hit her, that means I don't love her. You know, it's the same on both sides. And so we thank.
Okay, so thanks. Anybody else, any question, anything that you want to share, you can just unmute yourself. Any other contribution anybody else want to make? Unmute yourself.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Keith Cox here. I'm sorry, I was on the road, and so I wasn't getting good reception.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, the event is going to be on Friday. Thank you for announcing it. Also, I wrote something the other day. We are battling from a post area, right? We are waiting for these things to happen and then deal with it, instead of dealing with it pre, meaning let's deal with these issues early. The anointing, it's very crazy, right? That's not a good way to put it, but we are now seeing where the trend of the fathers are falling on the boys, or they're doing the same thing. Now, you know, they say that anointing dropped from the head down to the skirts, right? And the boys want to be like their fathers. And so we as fathers need to be careful of what kind of example we leaving for our boys to follow. So I think we got to look at that as well. Men got to be men, because if our boys are looking at us to emulate us, then in the next 15 years, when these boys become men, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And the way we treat our wives, our spouse, and all those things, then our boys will think it's okay. All right, so we got to tackle the problem early on, try to kill that demon. So, Dave, I got on the show late, so I appreciate Erin, my co-worker. Never met the other lady, but I didn't catch much of it. I apologize for that. But again, we will meet again, and we'll continue to do things. But I heard her say we got to continue to support one another in these NGOs. All right. And I know funding is a very difficult thing to come across. In the way we gotta, if we support one another, we can do it. On Saturday coming too as well, I'm gonna be tagging up with Pastor Delton Ellis, and we're gonna go into the Grove constituency and feed like 250 boys, 250 meals, and we're planning on giving out like 50 cases of water. So if anybody is free on Saturday morning around 9 o'clock, give me a shout, or give Dave a shout, get in contact with me, and we can go and lend a hand and support that worthy cause. Thank you, Dave. Blessings always.
Okay, so thanks, Keita. Anybody else, anything they want to just share briefly? We have the room still open. Anything else, any contribution? Any questions?
If I can add to what Mr. Keith said. Well, my husband's name is Keith too. I thought it was him.
Oh, okay, all right.
I was like, is he on this live? But I know he's in another room. Anyway, yes, I agree with him from a female standpoint that we need to talk to the men and the boys. I myself have 7 brothers. So yes, we have to have those conversations. Those conversations are very important. We need to have those from very young. and mold, start to mold the young men. And we could have those as mothers to young men if the father's not present in the home, or they don't have a male father figure or guardian. We have to have those conversations. We have to, because the respect, it's all goes back to loving yourself, respecting yourself, and we have to break those generational curse in terms of, a lot of things we have to learn as well. But yeah, we have to have those conversations. And I am happy that I have had men who were the abuser on my platform, and I've had men who were abused. So my platform is open to everyone. Anyone who find their inner voice, or who want, very important that we have conversations on both sides of the conversation. So I agree wholeheartedly with what he said.
Okay, thanks, folks. So I don't want to close without, if there's something final somebody else want to say, you can unmute yourself. Just as we wrap up, I know I got another Zoom at about 6 o'clock, which is another next half an hour. Anybody else want to make any other contribution?
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening, Apostle.
Blessings to you all. It's always a pleasure when you can hear targeted wisdoms of solutions. Now more than ever, it really leads back to us being personal, in other words, you work on yourself into our solution to the problems that exist. So it's very important that we understand what the demands is on us as individuals. Take, for instance, our lives need to be effective and convincing when it comes to people who have these problems. And if we don't have this convincing, impacting character, you see, to be effective as the solution to help them. See, we have to understand that people is looking. You can't treat people ignorantly. All of us are made whereby we are affected by truth. Even if it's the negative, you are made whereby you are affected by truth. We call it being sensitive. We have to understand, listen, it's good now, not to disrespect people by coming to them when we need help ourselves. I'm talking about in some cases in the specific areas. Because watch this now. If we are not good managers of ourselves, you're not beating your wife, You're not agreeing to abuse with, say, boys or girls, but you don't have yourself under control, whereby if wrong is taking place, you don't know how to relate right to the wrong. So what am I saying? It's important that we understand how we need to be solution to the message. Because who we want to help, they can tell whether or not we're phonies or we're genuine. So let's not miss that point, because that's a God point. The God point is take it out your own eye, points, so you can see clearly. So remember now, these people need genuine help. And we don't want to give the wrong impression of who hired us, which is our God. We want to represent him properly. So I thank you very much for this opportunity for us to be encouraged, to choose to be vessels that sanctified unto his honor and fit for his use. Love you all. Thanks again.
Okay, so folks, I just want to thank you. I think that should end us unless there's somebody else want to share. I like to give persons opportunity to share, make a comment. We understand those who have to go just before we close the room out. Anybody else wish to share, make a contribution? I'll pause for about, I guess, a minute, eh? Okay, so that means we would have concluded. So folks, I encourage you to enjoy your day. Rejoice in the God of your salvation, who is Jesus Christ. If you have the Christian faith, if you're not, and that's the only thing I know, so that's the only thing I can really speak of. But I encourage you to have a wonderful Sunday afternoon and be looking forward to joining us this coming Friday, joining Mrs. Hollis as a part of that program. Like I say, and if the God and Christ who me and you serve spare my life, I'll be another year getting closer to 60. If not, then at least you'll know I die in him. So you know you have that assurance of seeing me in the first resurrection. Have a wonderful day and enjoy, everyone.